With The Walking Dead coming to a close, we had a ton of future spin-offs announced for this series, and it just made me start to think to myself, what other spin-offs could they possibly do for this show? So I decided today I would be going over 10 ideas I have for future Walking Dead spin-offs within the same universe as, of course, where the TV series is set. I just want to make this clear. I don't want to see a million spin-offs for this show, especially all at once. If they do a bunch of different spin-offs, I would like to see them kind of spaced out over the course of quite a few years, especially if they don't have the budget for it. I don't want them throwing all this money towards a bunch of different shows. I would prefer they kind of stick to quality over quantity, but these are just some ideas I had. Some of them are very detailed, some of them are not that detailed, but again, they're just small ideas, and not all of them are the same type of thing as well. Some of them are full TV series, some of them are mini series, some of them are just straight up movies. Actually, most of them are just movies, because I actually think The Walking Dead should do some films. They don't have to be theatrical releases. They could literally just put them on AMC Plus, but I would like to see a couple of Walking Dead movies that are just like an hour and 30 minutes long, because that'd be pretty cool. There's also a lot of ideas I've heard from the community quite a few times that I'm just gonna completely turn down right now because I personally don't like these ideas. The one I always hear is a what if series. I hate that idea. I despise hypothetical what if situations for TV shows like this. I just do, because they're not canon, right? They have no real meaning to this universe in any way, shape, or form, because it's just something that physically did not happen in this universe. It works in something like Marvel when you have in this established multiverse. When you have this multiverse, you can do all these different stories because they are technically canon to the multiverse. But The Walking Dead does not have a multiverse, nor do I want it to have a multiverse, so I just would prefer not to see what ifs, and honestly, I don't care that much to see, like, what if Shane survived to see Negan. Like, you know, it's an interesting idea, sure, to talk about, but I don't think I'd want a whole series set just with that scenario, personally. If you like that idea, that's fine, but I personally don't like that idea. And also, tons of people have these ideas with spin-offs with characters that already exist in the show, just like a side story with them. I'm not that interested in that. I kind of would like to see some newer characters. There's only some characters that I would like to see storylines for them continue, and we'll talk about that in our ideas, but most of the time, I just don't really care. Like, I know a lot of people are talking about like an Abraham, Eugene, Rosita prequel thing. Cool idea, I guess. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I wouldn't be against it, but what new stories could they tell with those characters that would really add that much to those characters? So let's jump into this with my first idea, and this is definitely my most detailed idea. If you guys have been following me for quite some time, and if you were even following my gaming channel back when I only had that gaming channel, I actually did a whole series on this idea, and I literally fleshed out 4 seasons worth of this. Like, I did specific videos for each episode and went through my full like run through of what happens in each episode. I thought of all of this throughout like the past decade, literally. I've been writing and writing for this idea because I just think there's so much potential for it, and this is the one that if it ever happened, my life would feel complete. It would feel complete, especially if I could have a say in it. That's like my life dream. If I could have one wish, I would want to create this into a series and be like the showrunner. I would literally because the ideas I have, man, there's just so many ideas I have. I don't even like the ideas I did for the YouTube channel. Half those ideas kind of suck. I've thought of new ideas and I want to do more with this thing. I'll just get to the point now. It's an adaptation of the Walking Dead Telltale games story with Clementine. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know what that storyline is. I'm sure you guys have played the games. If you don't, it is a 4-season worth game, which the seasons aren't exactly the same length as your TV seasons, but they're kind of similar. And it's an incredible story, right? Most of it isn't that great, though, I'll be honest. There's a couple of episodes and such that they're not really that great. But especially the first season and even some of the second season and fourth season are pretty solid stuff. And I absolutely love the characters within it, especially Clementine, Lee, and Kenny. And I just so badly would love to see an adaptation of that story into live action within the Walking Dead universe. And the ideas I had personally, it would be about 7 to 8 seasons worth of it. It would basically be a full timeline of Clementine going from being a 10-year-old girl like she was at the start of the apocalypse all the way to maybe like 17 or 18 when the series comes to a close. So think of like Harry Potter, where, you know, he starts off 10 or 11 and he ends the series basically as an adult. I would love to see that growth of this character from her, you know, childhood years in the apocalypse. Like, it's just such a great concept, and her being the main character, she is the lead of this series. Just the simple title I had for it, literally all you have to call it is Clementine, a Walking Dead series or a Walking Dead story or some shit. Like, you could literally just title it Clementine. People would love that. People already love the game, so why wouldn't they love an adaptation of that game as well? The hardest thing would be finding a Clementine, because you need to find a 10-year-old actress who is a great actress at 10 years old, and you have to be certain that she can be there for 8 more years going forward. Like, that's obviously not something that would be easy to find. But I mean, imagine if they did. Then of course you'd have Lee, Kenny, and not that this would be easy for them to do, but I actually did think of 2 actors that would be perfect for Lee and Kenny. And for Lee, I thought of Yahya Abdul-Mateen. He plays Black Manta in Aquaman. If you've seen that, he's also in the new Candyman and a couple other fantastic movies. He's a great actor. He is like a perfect Lee in my opinion. He looks like Lee. He even has the sound of Lee, kind of, not really in the same tone. You're not going to get that exact tone, but you don't need it. He looks like Lee. He could be a damn good Lee. I'm sure he can. And for Kenny, I thought of Ethan Hawke. Now, of course, these are 2 massive actors. I'm sure AMC would not be paying for that shit, but imagine, they would be a perfect Lee and Kenny. Come on now, come on. And so essentially season 1, it would be just the full season 1 of the game. It would just be a full adaptation of that. You could do 16 episodes. You could probably tell season 1 story within 16 episodes. It would be the same way through. I'm not going to spoil anything for someone who hasn't played the game, but you know, you can do that. Season 2, I would say, has a little bit of, it's a little bit messy, so I do think you'd have to expand it to like 2 or 3 seasons, and you can add a lot more content in it. That's at least what I did in my own personal ideas. You just added a bunch of stuff that kind of fixed the story a bit, kind of added to certain points that feel like they didn't have enough to it, and you could definitely have a couple solid seasons out of that. Season 3 as well, you can do 1 or 2 seasons out of that. Season 4, you could also finish off with a season or 2. You can do so many great things with that story, and again, they can do a million different things. Just have the same concept, have the same characters, and you're good to go. I'm not going to get too far into it because we have 9 other things to talk about today, but I mean, the possibilities are endless for a series like this. And like I said, it would be instantly successful because there are tons of fans of the game. There are tons of fans of the game who haven't even watched the series. They haven't even watched the main show, but they love the game. I think this could possibly convince them to actually watch the series. Now, of course, there are some issues because Skybound owns the Telltale game and AMC doesn't own it. So AMC would have to buy the rights to it, and I just don't think AMC would buy the rights to it, but I really would love if they did, or at the very least made some sort of a deal with Skybound so Skybound can get this done, because wow, I mean, it just, oh my god, it would be so fucking good. Just think of all those amazing storylines in the game and imagine them on screen. Oh, it's just so good. On to the second idea. This is another one that I really would love to see happen, and I think this one is probably the most possible out of all these ideas. Actually, no, this one and the next one are definitely probably tied for the most possible. But this one is going to be a Walking Dead crossover film after all of these spin-offs release. So the reason I want this is because I don't like the idea of these storylines of, you know, Negan, Maggie, Daryl, Rick, Michonne. I don't like the idea of their stories ending separately in their own shows. I don't like that. I want them all to have their final moments in the Walking Dead universe together. So whenever they decide it's time to end the spin-offs, we don't need to do seasons for them anymore. If they do 2 seasons for each of them, I don't know. Whenever they decide they don't want to do anymore, they bring them all together, they make them kind of work in, and they cross over. And you could also bring in characters from the main series. You can bring back Eugene, you can bring back Carol, you can bring back Lydia, whoever you want to bring back from the main series. Obviously Judith and such to reunite with Rick as well. You need that, obviously, and you can do that in this crossover film as well. And you could also cross over Fear the Walking Dead if you would like to. Bring back Morgan, bring back Dwight, bring back those characters, bring back Madison, and have her meet Rick. How cool would that be in a whole film? It would be like a 2-hour special you can put on AMC Plus, or you can put in the theaters if they had the money for it. And you could also cross over some World Beyond characters while you're at it. I don't care. Do everything you can possibly think of and have this movie be a CRM versus Commonwealth battle. And it makes perfect sense. I don't think it's that complicated how you can make a conflict between these 2 groups happen. So it's pretty much not confirmed, but highly teased that Commonwealth was giving people to CRM, like they were transporting stuff to CRM. They don't explicitly say it, but it's teased, and I do think they were doing it. So what happens when leadership gets changed at Commonwealth and they're not sending new people anymore because they stopped all that shit? They put Pamela behind bars and everything, so they're not doing that anymore. So what happens? I'm sure CRM is going to notice and be like, why isn't Commonwealth sending us anything? We should probably go check it out. And I don't know, they did a 1-year time jump and they seem to be fine after a year, so I'm not sure if maybe something happened between then or maybe something will happen after. I don't know why it would take them a year to go to Commonwealth and say something, but let's just assume there is something to be said, right? CRM most likely would be like, hey, we had a deal going on here, what the fuck? And then maybe Commonwealth would just shut them down and be like, we're not doing that anymore. And that would cause conflict. And then now you have a possible war between these communities for whatever reason. Just because of that could be like the spark that ignites it. And then this war breaks out. And then you have, you know, Rick and Michonne just coming back from CRM to Commonwealth. And now they're a part of this battle as well. And you could have all these characters cross over. You could have Fear the Walking Dead end in season 8 with them getting to Commonwealth, so it makes sense why they're a part of this battle as well. And again, it does not have to be a whole series. You can just make this one film, and it would be to end all of these characters' storylines, all of them. I'm saying Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, all the spin-offs, they all end with this, and all these characters are never to be seen again, and I mean it, except for a couple of them though. There are a couple of them I would like to see continue on even past this, and that's going to get into my third idea, and this third idea is a legacy series. Now this series has to be like 10 years into the future, or maybe even 15, like it cannot be soon. This has to be something that happens way later, and they've been doing this for a bunch of different shows the past couple years. You call them revival series, right? You see it with iCarly. I think that 70s show is doing something like that now. I think they did it for, what was it, Boy Meets World or whatever. They did like a Girl Meets World thing. They're doing this with a bunch of shows. Full House did one too. They don't stop doing them. Obviously, those are all sitcoms, but still, you could still do them for a bunch of other shows as well. And that could be what this kind of is. But the only characters that return are Judith, RJ, Herschel, Coco, Ezra, Gracie. Ezra is Jerry's kid. You could do that for all these characters and have them come back in 15 years when they're older. And I prefer it being like that because I would not like to see them recasted. Of course, you could recast most of them. Judith is the only one I wouldn't want to see recasted. I would love to see Kelly Fleming back as Judith in the future. She is Judith to me now, so recasting her would feel very weird. But the other ones, honestly, we didn't really get to see much of them, so if they wanted to come back, cool, but if they didn't, then I really wouldn't be too mad about that either, to be completely honest. But I think they need to have Kelly Fleming as Judith for sure. And it could just be a little story, a little mini series of them kind of going on like a mission or something, because they're going to be adults by then, so they can go on a little mission outside of the walls of Commonwealth. And we just get to see what's going on with them. They're just hanging out, they're just doing whatever. Maybe they get in some altercations with some groups, and that's it. It's as simple as that. They actually did film a scene for the Walking Dead finale that they cut. They obviously cut it, where they did have a time jump with older versions of these characters. So the idea was at least there, but I would love to see this as an actual series way into the future after they finish all the storylines, after they reunite with Rick, after they do all of that. I would love to see a series like that. So the next 3 ideas are all kind of similar, so I'm going to put them all together. The first one of these ideas is going to be a governor backstory film, and you can probably assume what the rest of them are. They're also related to villains from the main series. And yes, it's a prequel for the governor, and they actually wrote a whole bunch of, Robert Kirkman wrote a whole bunch of governor prequel novels that were in the comic universe, and I actually read most of them, and they had a lot of interesting story to them. Obviously, it would be very different in the series because the version of, you know, the governor that we got in the series is very different than the comics, but there definitely is a story to tell there, because I don't think the governor was always this terrible person. I do think before the apocalypse, he was more of an average guy, more so, not completely though. He definitely had some sort of an edge to him, because I don't think someone just snaps like that out of nowhere, especially only like, what was it, like 9 to 10 months into the apocalypse with season 3. It wasn't even that far into the apocalypse. So there was definitely some edge to it, but I would love to see those first few months of the apocalypse with the governor. And it wouldn't be a whole series. I don't think you could do a whole series out of this. Maybe you could, but I wouldn't want to see that. I would want to see just a film where it just shows the biggest events for this character. You can bring back Merle even, maybe he was in Woodbury at a certain point, and you could have him, like, maybe it would have him first showing up to the gates of Woodbury. Maybe you can bring back Martinez, bring back Milton even. You could bring back a bunch of different people. Obviously, they would maybe have to de-age them. I don't know, I don't think they age that much, actually. You probably wouldn't have to do no de-aging shit. That would be expensive anyways. But, that would be, in my opinion, really cool, because I think there are a lot of stories to tell with the governor. You could see him like starting his fish tanks with all the walker heads in them. Maybe there was some event that kind of caused him to become way more harsh than he was before. Like, I'm not sure what the story would be. I just know I would love to see a governor backstory film. And that leads us into our next one, which is a Rise of Negan film. And I'm going to say that instead of just his backstory, because we already saw a Negan backstory for, you know, within Here's Negan, but we didn't get to see his rise to becoming the leader of the Saviors. All we saw was him before the Saviors, right when the apocalypse started with Lucille. But we didn't get to see that actual rise to becoming what he is, you know, and we got to see that in the comics, but we never got to see that here. So I would still love to see that. And again, it would only really work, in my opinion, as a film, about an hour and a half, whatever it may be. And you can have him, you know, meeting Dwight and Simon and all these different characters, and you could just see what leads him to becoming the way he does. Why does everyone respect him the way they do? I'm curious. I want to see how the TV version got to the power. I want to see how the TV version worked his way up there. Like, I would love to see all of that. And the fact that Here's Negan didn't show that, at first it kind of bothered me, because I thought Here's Negan was going to show that, but the story we did get in Here's Negan was incredible anyways, so I didn't really care that much at the end of the day. I still would love to see actually what happened with him becoming the leader of the Saviors. And then that's going to lead us into the last of the villain backstories, and this one is actually going to be for Gareth and the Hunters. Now, I was gonna think maybe there was something they can do with Alpha, but they've already done 2 Alpha backstories, one within The Walking Dead and one within Tales of the Walking Dead, and both of them I didn't like that much, so I don't really know what other stories they could even tell beyond that with those characters, with Alpha and Lydia, so I wouldn't want to see that again. But Gareth and the Hunters, there is definitely a story to tell there, 1000%, because they even showed us a little tease of what was going on with them before they met Rick, but they didn't do much more with it, right? Remember the beginning of season 5, episode 1, the very, very start of it, they showed Gareth and his mother and that other guy, they showed them in the train car captured by this other group. And they were talking about how they're going to escape and they're going to take this place back. And they eventually did take this place back, and they turned it into Terminus. My question is, what the hell was going on there? Who were these people that captured them? We saw the guy, he was captured in there after as well, and he came out, and then he just got killed by a walker after like 2 seconds, and then that was it. But I want to see the story there. I want to see what happened. What was that group? What were they doing to Gareth? And what made Gareth and their group realize they have to just start eating people? What made them decide that? I want to see that just twist in their minds where they're like, you know what? We got to start eating people. I want to see the first people they started doing that to. We can literally see it from their perspective of them luring people in and killing them. And like, that fucking idea is incredible to me. I'm getting chills thinking about it. Why can't we get a backstory for this? That would be fucking amazing. They would have to get the Terminus studio again. Of course, they'd have to get the actor for Gareth back. He was a great actor as well. I absolutely loved the actor for that character. That'd be awesome. That'd be fucking great. And the next 3 ideas I also kind of grouped together because they are very similar. I don't really have much details to these next 3. Like I didn't go much in depth with them at all, but they're simple, right? Next one is simply just a series set in Hawaii. Yeah, the next 3 ones are simply just location based. I think locations are important. I do think they can add a lot of new life to the series, which I'm very glad they're going to New York City for the Negan and Maggie spinoff. I'm really glad they're going to France for the Daryl one, and then the Rick and Michonne one I believe is going to be in Philadelphia, or at least in that area. So it is nice to get to see a bunch of new locations that we haven't seen before. I was getting sick of just seeing Georgia woods all the time, even though I know they're technically in Virginia in the show, but they're filming in Georgia. So it is nice to see some new stuff, but I would love to see Hawaii. Hawaii is an awesome looking place. And imagine that in The Walking Dead. Imagine that sort of environment. Like, you can do it on like a resort. Maybe you could have a family vacationing there, and then they get help from people who live there, and they get like, there's so much they can do with that. And again, it doesn't have to be a fully fledged series, because yeah, a fully fledged series set in just in Hawaii would be a bit much, but you could do at least a mini series, and maybe it's about them trying to get out of Hawaii because the planes aren't working and everything, so they only need a boat to get out of there. Maybe it's so swarmed on that island that they like feel like they need to get the fuck out of there, and there's just like not enough food to save themselves. I don't know. I don't know what the story would be, but I'm just thinking of the ideas, and I think they can do a lot with that. The next one is going to be Japan, actually, and more specifically, I think Tokyo. I just think Tokyo as a city looks incredible, and I think they could definitely benefit from having a location like that, and you could have it be based with a family that lives there. You could have, I don't know, really any characters that live in Tokyo. I don't really have much more to say, honestly. I think it's a cool location, and it would breathe some new life into this series, to be completely honest. And the next one, the last one for the location-based ideas, Canada. It's just so fucking simple, but the reason why I'm saying Canada, I know there's more places on Earth that have snow, but I just want to see some area with snow. That's all I want. It doesn't have to be Canada necessarily. I guess you could scrap that and just say anywhere that has snow, and I'm down for it. And I mean like constant snow, like most of the year snow. You can go in Alaska even, like just areas where it's going to be snowing a lot, and the show is going to be mainly centered around the struggles of surviving in the apocalypse when it's snowing. They did one episode in The Walking Dead with snow, and it was a really cool idea for that one episode, but we never saw it again. And I would absolutely love to see a full series where you have to see how the survivors are going to get around in the snow. And I don't think walkers will be much of a threat because they'll probably just get frozen, obviously, but you don't need the series to be so centered around the walkers. I don't need all these series to have that centered. You could just make it more about the people living in that area, and it could just be a very survival-centric series where it's really just about them trying their hardest to survive every day. And it's not easy when you're living in the cold and you're freezing your ass off all the time, and you don't have much food, and it's a lot of struggles that can happen in a really snowy environment, and I think that would be really awesome to see. And the last idea I have is one that you can definitely make a whole series out of, but I think it could also just work as a mini series. And that is showing a military group from the start. Like, I'm talking the start of the apocalypse, and showing how a military group handles the apocalypse from their perspective. They showed some of the military in Fear the Walking Dead, but to me, it was not nearly enough. And I would love to see how exactly the military failed so badly. Because they showed that in Fear the Walking Dead just a little bit, but I feel like they could have shown more. And from the perspective of the military soldiers would be even more interesting, like actually getting to see how they deal with it. You can do it whatever city you want, I don't care, somewhere different. You can do it, I don't know, Austin, Texas, whatever it may be. I don't really care. Maybe not, it's too close to a lot of where Fear the Walking Dead was, to be honest. I know they weren't filming in Austin, but there were Texas areas that they were in for the show, so I don't know, whatever, go somewhere that we haven't been, but have it based on a military group just trying to deal with the situation. And you can have like them completely failing and then still living on afterwards, and maybe they have like immense guilt about what happened. You could even have a situation like with the Atlanta bombing that they did, right? And they also did it to Los Angeles. There was a bunch of places they bombed in this universe in order to try to stop the walkers as much as they can. And you can have soldiers who live with the guilt of knowing they probably killed innocent people doing that, and it didn't even help. It didn't even end up saving anyone. It just ended up getting people killed. Characters with that type of guilt would be really interesting to follow, in my opinion. So I don't know, it's a cool idea. It's not a very detailed idea. Like I said, the first couple ones were way more detailed, but this one, I like the idea. So that is going to do it for this video. Let me know your ideas in the comment section below. Like I said, I don't want to see all of these done. I would hate that if we had 10 series at once, but there's a couple of these, especially the first three even, that I would absolutely love to see more than anything here. And I think a couple of those backstory films for the villains I would love to see as well. For the location ones and the military one, I'm not as crazy about those ideas, but they're still ideas and I wouldn't mind seeing them. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Peace out.